Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us today for the ITESOFT webinar looking at our supplier portal. My name is John Stovold. I'm your host this morning. I'm joined by my colleague Craig Lindley, the UK pre-sales manager, and he'll be running the demonstration elements of this very shortly. So thank you very much all for joining us. So to start off with, we would just like to set the scene, why we feel that talking to you guys today about a supplier portal is important. And of course, the pains felt in an accounts payable department can be many and various. This by no means is an exhaustive list of problems that you guys and your teams, I'm sure, face on a daily basis. And these are problems that we've highlighted in particular that can be particularly easily resolved through the use of a supplier portal. Now, the first of those is probably the one that springs to mind first and foremost. It's incoming supplier phone calls. How many of you have volumes of these coming in each day? This can be suppliers just simply checking when they can expect payment. It can be suppliers calling to find out if you've received their invoice, whether that was a piece of paper that they popped in the post, whether it was an email. And yes, I'm sure there's plenty of you on here today that do receive phone calls asking if you've received the email through as much as anything else. Receiving multiples of the same invoice is another real headache that a supplier portal can help alleviate. Now, the advantages here is if the supplier can upload the information themselves, therefore not having to rely on a third party to deliver that information to you, it gives them some confidence. They're less likely to pop an invoice in the post and then a day or two later pop another one in the post, just to be on the safe side, just in case Royal Mail has managed to lose that day's deliveries or whatever it may be. Now, of course, receiving multiples of the same invoice, if you're not in an automated solution within accounts payable, can result in a lot of problems around duplicate payments, trying to get the money back out of people and that sort of thing as well. If you as an organization rather have multiple different locations, maybe different trading addresses, maybe retail addresses, etc., invoices being sent into different locations can again cause a real headache, and they can cause some real delays to the process, particularly if those invoices then have to be transferred via internal mail system, or worst case yet, being popped in the post and sent out by Royal Mail. And there's other bits and pieces here as well, guys, that we've highlighted. Suppliers failing to include all the necessary information. Now, that can be helped through an automated system. If you've got your suppliers to email you the invoice, for instance, you can have that automatically returned to them to say, hey, you guys, you need to include your PO number, or, whatever it may be that they've missed off. But again, within a supplier portal, if the supplier's uploading that information themselves, then the pressure's on them. They need to submit all the relevant information for that to go through. Surrounded by pieces of paper in your department and your team, it's a horrible situation to be in. Nobody likes to be surrounded by rafts of paper. And again, offering your suppliers a different way to communicate with you can be really effective. We've all heard, that EDI is going to kill the paper invoice. Well, we know that that's really not true. And in fact, the vast majority of invoices that are sent and received in the UK are still sent as pieces of paper. What that means is that people are finding it difficult, particularly with smaller suppliers, to get them to convert to electronic formats. With a supplier portal, what you're offering them is a way to do this, but without it being expensive and heavy and time consuming for them to do it. They're able to upload a PDF, or they're able to input some data themselves into a portal, knowing that that information is coming through to you guys securely and safely. But what's the impact of these problems? And as I say, these are just a few of the problems that you guys are often facing. But what's the impact? Well, they result in a waste of time. Huge amounts of time that are wasted by accounts payable teams up and down the country every day. And as we all know, time is money. More importantly, it's time that could be spent far more effectively. If your team aren't spending time picking up phones to deal with incoming inquiries, they're not spending time chasing down suppliers, they're not spending time trying to figure out how somebody's been paid twice and why on earth they've got 4 copies of the same invoice, That's time that they can spend in dealing with genuine supplier relationship stuff. They can be looking at the analytics of where your payments are going, who you're paying, how much you're paying them. Are you getting the best value for money from these particular suppliers? Have you got the right information and data for these suppliers on the books? And that's where the supplier portal comes in. We're trying to offer a full digitalization solution from ITESOFT for accounts payable, and that's from invoice capture through traditional routes through to offering this service, supplier portal as a service. So the ITESOFT supplier portal, it's hosted in the cloud. Because it's part of the full streamline for invoices application, it gives far more control and flexibility to you as an organization, but it also gives you far more insight over the full process from beginning to end. The new supplier portal as a service also includes a lot of collaborative functions. It's allowing your suppliers to upload documents, to exchange information, live chat boxes, etc. Of course, we will come on to that in the demonstration, so I don't want to delve too much into that right now. I certainly don't want to steal Craig's thunder as he's progressing through the demonstration in a few moments. So the benefits of supplier portals are vast, and actually these are benefits that you'll find across digitalization generally in accounts payable. Reductions of supplier calls we've already highlighted. Incoming supplier phone calls can be a real headache and a bugbear for accounts payable teams. Very disruptive in terms of breaking up where people are and what they're doing over the course of a day. But you're also able to gain benefits, things like avoiding late payment penalties, putting some conformity in around the information that your suppliers are delivering into you as an organization, reducing the risks of fraudulent payments and fraudulent invoices, reducing risks around your supplier relationships, ensuring that they're being paid promptly, if not early, and making sure that they have visibility and insight into that process. It's giving them a chance to be able to track what's going on and how it's happening, or certainly in as much depth as you would like to give them. And again, Craig will no doubt be touching on this as we progress through the demonstration part of this morning. So on that note, again, a quick reminder, please do use that chat function. If you've got questions, you've got thoughts, etc. I am going to hand over to my colleague, Craig, as let's face it, we know that you're here for the demonstration and not to hear me telling you about the problems and the benefits that can be brought around as a result of this. So if the technology works, Craig, we're going to pass across to you.
Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look at the supplier portal. So the supplier portal is accessed, as you would expect, through a web page on the internet. This is cloud hosted. So for this demonstration, we're just going to log in as an ITESOFT vendor, so one of our suppliers, and they're going to see what the state of their invoices is. We're going to log in with username and password today. We offer multiple kind of connection options. One is username and password, the other is kind of single sign-on. So we can support various industry standards for single sign-on, so your vendors can get taken straight into the portal. However, we're going to log on and off as different people today, so we're just going to log in with username and password. So nice and simple, enter my details. I'm now connected to the portal. So as a supplier, I'm presented with a dashboard of giving me an overview of what's happening on the system. So for example, I can see 111 invoices have been submitted, 74% have been paid, 5% in dispute, various things like that. We also have a quick upload here, so it's nice and straightforward to upload invoices straight from the front page. We haven't really mentioned it, and we're not going to touch on it too much today, but the supplier portal itself is kind of built on an entire platform which supports a full suite of SRM tools. So again, we're not going to look into that too much, so kind of surveys and quotations and things like that, we're not going to touch on today. Things that a supplier can do through a portal. So one of the nice things is, for example, if they have had a change of address, they can make changes through this portal. So they could notify you that they've changed address through here. This obviously won't update your finance system. What it will do, however, is create effectively a workflow item in the kind of the flip side of this, the accounts payable, the procurement side, to let you know that the supplier has indicated that something has changed. You still have to perform all the kind of due diligence around this just to make sure it is really them, things like that. But it's a nice mechanism for them to let you know of changes. So the main kind of things that suppliers will be doing through here is looking at invoices, for example. So here we can see an unfiltered list of all the invoices we have on the platform. Let's just apply a couple of filters. Let's put types, status, ready to pay, in progress, paid. Obviously, we can filter on various different things. So if they're supplying different legal entities, so you may have multiple legal entities, they can view the invoices across all of them. If they just want to filter for a particular month, they can do that as well. So we've applied a little filter here, and the number of invoices has gone down. What we can see at the bottom here is the financial amount, that the total cost of all these invoices and credits that they've submitted in the various currencies that they submit invoices to you in. So in this time frame, there's no dollar invoice in there. They have invoiced in dollars in the past, and roughly 307,000 euros. What's nice is they can also export these lists. So rather than them sending you a list of invoices that they sent you in a period and asking you to do some kind of consolidation, supplier statements, things like that, they can download this information themselves. What they can also do, which is quite nice, is they can click on any particular invoice and they can see when it was received, when it was, when it was processed, when it was marked as ready to pay, and when it was finally paid. If it's on hold, for example, they can see when you received it, if it's in dispute, who it's in dispute with. They also have a copy of the invoice here. So if for any reason they've forgotten what they've actually invoiced you for, they can see that information. They also have the ability to send messages. So if an invoice is in dispute, they can say, we sent 10, you received 10. Please pay. So this is a nice way of keeping all communications around a single invoice in one place, rather, because obviously if they're phoning up and speak to one person, send an email in that's been dealt with by someone else, it can lead to a lot of confusion. So this is one central place where they can communicate about a particular problem or ask about payments, things like that. They also have the ability to view and add attachments. So if, for example, there is an ongoing dispute about a box of widgets they sent, they can add files here. For example, they may want to attach a delivery note. So your goods in function signed a delivery note, checked everything over. They can attach that here and say, look, we really did send 10. As well as being able to view these invoices, as John mentioned earlier, it is quite nice for them to see that you've received an invoice, so they don't double invoice. The invoice processing software itself will block duplicates anyway, but it just gives them a little bit of peace of mind that they've sent it, you've received it, it's scheduled for payment. There's no kind of ambiguity. So that leads us kind of onto the flip side. So if we go to payment, this will show you invoices that have been paid, so payments that have been made. So here, for example, if we click on this bottom payment, 9,705 euros, what they can see here, they can see a list of invoices that were paid in this payment run. So this kind of cuts down on those calls where they're phoning you up and saying you've paid us £11,000, not 12. Why did you pay us 11 and not 12? They can actually have a look here and say, okay, there's an invoice missing, for example. It may be that you didn't receive that invoice. If there is an invoice that's in dispute, they can find that as well. They also have the ability, as you would expect, to kind of click and view these invoices from the payments flip side as well. Finally, invoice deposit is quite nice. So this is where they can upload invoices into the kind of invoice processing platform right direct from in here. So this is kind of guaranteed delivery. So email, it's not guaranteed delivery. If they send it in the post, it's not particularly guaranteed delivery. However, if they send it through this supplier portal, the mechanisms that are utilized underneath guarantee that you will receive this invoice. it's nice and straightforward for them to do, so they can just drop their PDF or in here. We also have the ability to make some fields mandatory. So out of the box, none of the fields are mandatory. We can just submit this. But if, for example, let's say you work in an industry in care homes and they must always quote what room number and what location that the care is being provided for, we can capture that at that point. So, you know, it's never going to be missing. Okay, and that's as simple as it gets from a kind of supplier point of view. It is really simple and really intuitive to use. And as John mentioned, kind of handling supplier queries roughly accounts for about 40% of AP's time. So that's time that can be spent better elsewhere. And obviously it's a kind of thankless task, really, just answering phone calls and giving people information that they would prefer to get themselves far quicker. I always kind of draw an analogy with if I was to order something from Amazon just by sending an email in and not knowing if they'd received my order, if they'd shipped my order, if, you know, when I'm going to receive it. This is effectively giving the supplier all the tools they need to manage their relationship with you. Okay, so what I'm going to do for the moment, I'm just going to log out as the vendor, and I'm going to log in as one of ITESOFT's accountants to kind of see what information we have. So again, we have a dashboard here showing across all the entire platform, the invoices we've received, how many vendors, number of connections onto this portal through all our different suppliers, and lots and lots and lots of options. We're not going to look at them all today, but one of the kind of interesting one here is this global view of all your suppliers. You can obviously filter as you would expect, but we do things like we'll show you the assessment, what we rate this supplier as. So are they any good or not? You know, they're sending duplicates, is there problems, lots of disputes, things like that. So this can be useful for a kind of procurement side when you're looking to consolidate suppliers, things like that. You can see who are your top suppliers by, you know, least problems, things like that. Let's just have a look at other bits and pieces. Yeah. So again, we can flip it on its head and we can look at payments that are being made across all your suppliers, things like that. As we mentioned, we do have the ability to plug all this SRM bit in, which is, you know, around RFPs, quotations, surveys, gathering information. And through this tool as well, we can obviously assign users to their corresponding vendor IDs. So if Steve from Portakabin signs up, for example, you can say that Steve can view vendor PK1, PK2, PK3. It could be that you've got 10 different sites, you know, York, Wolverhampton, and you need to perform that mapping. That's done through here. What I'm going to do, however, though, I'm just going to come back to the dashboard and I'm going to pass back to John. That's just a high-level view of Supplier Portal and the kind of benefits that you can quickly get from the solution. John, back to you. Thank you.
Craig, thank you very much. Much appreciated there. And let's just make sure we've got the screens round the right way as well. So, ladies and gents, thanks very much. I can see there's been a few questions that have popped up there in over the course of the demonstration, and we will bring Craig in to give us some answers on some of those in a moment. Now, hopefully you're all able to see my screen nice and clearly. I'm going to leave the webcam off just for this final bit, just because I don't want to risk doing a cut-off as I try and bring that back into play. So Craig, again, our thanks. Thank you for the demonstration there, for that quick high-level insight into the Supplier Portal. So just in conclusion, the Supplier Portal from ITESOFT is a complete portal, and it allows for progressive implementation of optimized supplier relationships. Wonderful wording there on point number one. What it's saying there is basically this gives you a great way to interact and engage with your suppliers, to build a relationship with your suppliers, ensuring that they are getting benefit, as well as yourselves as an organization are getting benefit from the platform and application. Because this is a part of Streamline for Invoices, the supplier portal also benefits from the established shared knowledge base of supplier information that we have within there. And if you'd like to know more about that, please do jump onto the website. Plenty of information on there about the benefits of the mutualized supplier repository within Streamline for Invoices and Capture as a Service. As we say, it's a natively integrated portal, and that's both the supplier portal and it's the supplier relationship management element. Now, Craig very briefly touched on that during the demonstration. We will be back again in September to do a far more detailed demonstration and look at the supplier relationship management side of the new supplier portal. And the final element here to conclude, the supplier portal does come as part of the quick start fast implementation of the as a service application from ITESOFT. So we have got a few questions already that have come up, and going to try and get through these. So please do feel free to ask more as well. We have got a little bit of time here, so any others that you may have, please do ask us. So question number one, how is access to the supplier portal set up, and how do you communicate to suppliers that they have to submit invoices on the portal? Do you put a link on your PO? And what about invoices where a PO wasn't raised? Well, I think we've probably got 4 questions there from Natalie. And Craig, in the interest of making this one probably easier, I'd like to hand over to you, if you don't mind, to answer.
Yep, can you just read out that 4-part question again, John? Sorry, I was quite long.
Yeah, of course. So you got your pen ready. So how is access to the portal set up?
Okay, well, let's go for that one first. Let's go for that one first because that's nice and simple. Okay, there are a number of ways you can do this. One is that you can allow your suppliers to sign up themselves. So when they point at the portal, if they're not already set up and single sign-ons turned on, they'll have the option there, kind of like if you go to Facebook without being signed in, you have an option to sign up. They can choose to sign up themselves. And obviously you have to validate that. The other way to do it is kind of the flip side, in that you enable a bunch of suppliers but don't allow them to sign up of their own volition, and you mail shot them with their details saying, you know, you've been configured for the supply portal, please use this. So there's 2 ways to kind of do it: invites, or effectively a free-for-all, opening it up for your suppliers to sign up when they want. Part 2.
Brilliant, thank you. So part 2, you've kind of partially answered that anyway, which was how do you communicate to suppliers that they have to submit invoices on the portal? So your point there that you've already touched on, where you can mail shot them, email them, etc., pointing them to the portal saying that they've been set up on here. Please can you submit your invoices through the portal moving forward, etc.
Yep.
That's probably the most
just one thing around that. The portal is the kind of nicest way and the most efficient way to do these things, but we don't have any requirements that they have to. So it could be that the finance system they have automatically mails out invoices. You know, so they get your order, they submit the order, the invoice is mailed out automatically. We don't want to make things difficult for your suppliers by saying you have to use a supply portal. So we do encourage it, but obviously you can see someone has to log in, someone has to attach PDFs, someone has to click send, that kind of thing. Whereas if it's automatically mailed out from their ERP, PDF, mail, we won't interfere with that process. So it's entirely down to how you want to work things, really.
Of course, and we touched on that earlier in the presentation as well, that this is just one of many routes that you can offer your suppliers to engage and interact with you to make life easier across.
Exactly. So it's not like, kind of, for example, an e-invoicing platform, a true e-invoicing platform where your suppliers have to do it this way. We don't want to do things quite as regimented, because obviously it can put smaller suppliers off. So we try and be as flexible as possible.
So the final 2 points that were in this first question is was, do you put a link on your PO, and what about invoices where a PO wasn't raised?
Okay, the last point, it doesn't really matter for PO or non-PO invoices. They can upload either through the portal, they can mail them in, and it can be processed through the invoicing processing software. You can put a link on your PDFs, sorry, on your orders. That's a pretty good idea. but depending on how you send your orders out, they may not be able to click, you know, if it's going out via paper, you can't click on a link via paper, so not necessarily the best idea. Again, the choice is yours. We can offer advice, but ultimately it's down to your choice and your relationship with your suppliers.
Perfect, thank you. Question number 2, Stefan, thank you. Please show more of the supplier maintenance aspect. So, Stefan, this is something that I would like to get one of the team to probably get in touch with you after the session here, to maybe put something together to go into a bit more depth if that's what's you know, really needed for yourselves. So we will come back to you after the session this morning on that one. Natalie again, hello. Does the portal link with OCR software, i.e. information pre-populated into our finance system? So the supplier portal from ITESOFT is a part of our full AP automation application, Natalie. It only comes and works with our applications, feeding information into a finance system by all means. However, we wouldn't connect it to a third-party OCR solution. It's just, one, they probably wouldn't let us, and 2, we probably wouldn't want to be doing that either, but it is part of the full application. Jordan has asked, does this work with any finance systems or is it a standalone system? Craig, over to you.
Yep, absolutely. So as John mentioned, this is part of the suite of Streamline for Invoices. So this is kind of the supplier side of this. Streamline for Invoices itself does integrate with an ERP. The information we kind of feedback from the ERP rather than from the, you know, the OCR software, for example, is things like when it's paid, when a payment's been made, things like that. So that's typically the only information we get from the finance system. But we've dealt with hundreds of finance systems, and we've not come across one yet that we can't integrate with Supplier Portal.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everybody. We've gone a little over the allotted time, but equally we did start a moment or two late. So guys, thank you very much for the questions there. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I'm going to leave this open just for a few more minutes in case there's any last minute questions that people are still thinking of that they want to pop in. And what we will do is we will come back to you after the session on that. We will make a recording of the session from this morning available to those of you that have joined us, and of course the slide deck is already available up on SlideShare for those that want to download it from there. So from our side again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us, and yeah, we look forward to keeping in touch with you.